Go.
They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.
Hey!
And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.
Oh, look at that. It's us. We're tiny. We can get big if we want to.
Oh, there we go. It's like we had the Mario mushroom.
I know. I got to figure out how to do this where I don't cut the music off because it's so nice. It's so chill. That's Swum. We yelled his name a lot during the first ever episode. Say it again. SWUM. Music's great. Check it out. Anyway, what's up, Jeff? And what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Chop Shop.
You know, it's been a couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
Like, we last saw you, you were getting held up by customs, right? Like, we didn't think you were getting back into the country. And
Yep.
Turns out you're here. I mean, it's unfortunate for some. But
I wish I wasn't. I want to go back to Quebec immediately. It was so much more pleasant up there. But you know what they don't have there that I could never give up? American football.
That's true. I mean, they've got that weird Canadian version. It's only a little different.
It's not what I'm looking for, though. And I think
don't besmirch the Grey Cup. Do not besmirch the.
Is that where Johnny Manziel is right now?
I think he's in that fan-controlled football league. It's some kind of weird. I actually saw like a game. I don't know if it was on like FS1 or some weird channel at like 2 a.m. And it's weird. Like there's an app, you log in, and you actually like get to pick the plays, and whatever plays get the most votes, like the offense has to run that play. Same thing with the defense. It's wild.
That is that's very strange. I think
but
it
he couldn't call plays anyway. So it's fine. The fans were way better off. But yeah, I'm good, man. I'm excited. Training camp started. I am fired up. I was kind of hoping, we didn't talk about this pre-show, but what we ought to do is try and see if we can say something about all 32 teams in one episode. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think, good news is the title of this show is Skyy Moore plus 31 other something winning your league about training camp. I don't remember what I titled it. I can't see it because I don't have it pulled up. But the point is, we are going to run through really quick just these first 48 hours, 72 hours of training camp, depending on where you're looking. 90% of it's still kind of fluff, but now we're getting news that matters. And I would be willing to bet that there's something going on, if you're paying attention, that is happening with all 32 teams right now that could change the course of your fantasy season. So we're going to try and identify that really early with this very limited amount of info with still in shorts, no pads, no hitting for the most part.
It's super tiny amount of news.
Super tiny news. But we're going to do it. You're going to win your leagues. So again, this is the Chop Shop. Gridiron Ratings is the host for all of these shows that we do on this channel. And I would be remiss to say right now, if you didn't go check out the Getting Defensive shows with Gary Davenport and everyone that they're bringing in, they have a ton of really great guests that are on right now. And also JJ Winter over with the Grinder Dynasty crew. Every Wednesday, they throw up an episode. And this is the time of the year where a lot of Dynasty people stop paying attention. And it's actually when you can get the most value in Dynasty. So check out those two shows.
Time to be sneaky.
Time to be sneaky, as always. This is where the trade, I won't use the word because it's mean, but taking advantage of people trading happens. So we're going to dive into all of that. Beyond the 32 teams, I wanted to give a quick shout out to everyone that's doing the Scott Fish Bowl and getting us through all of that. That entire experience is fantastic. This is your 5th season doing it, Jeff?
Fourth?
I
don't know. I got to count them backwards, and so I don't know. I think it's 4th.
All right. Well, it is my 1st, and I have absolutely loved it. I have connected with more people than I had in this industry in the previous 4 years over the last 2 weeks. So it's awesome. It's everything it's hyped up to be, and I'm enjoying it. And I will see everyone in the championship with Jeff and our tight end heavy teams. Moving on. Do you have anything else you want to tap into before we just start off rattling off these players?
Hey man, I just want to shout out our guy, Gator J over here. He's checking us out for the first time. So hey, thanks for tuning in, Gator.
So Gator's over there with Going for Two in their Discord channel, and I was chatting with him and a few of the other guys earlier, and making fun of the other Jeff over at Going for Two. So what's up, Gator? He's checking out our show, and hopefully a few other people will as well. But we'll push this on Reddit, and we have right now a post that I put up on Reddit 4 or 5 hours ago that was just saying, hey, tell me what your favorite like training camp stories are right now. And it's, I think, 30 or so comments. So there's some stuff. And while you're talking in this episode, Jeff, I'm going to get on my phone at one point and look and see if there's a few that we can talk about that they've brought up as well. But let's start with Skyy Moore. I'm not even going to talk anymore, except for he's the man. This is the third time we've brought him up. We've only done 7 episodes, and this is the third one. We love Skyy Moore on the Chop Shop. We've liked him the entire time. Pre-draft process, liked him, and then loved him more when he went to the Chiefs. Jeff, take it away. Skyy Moore looks like the truth right now.
Yeah, I mean, everything we saw in rookie camp was really glowing, right? You know, he had to step away for a couple of days. There was no big deal. But at the end of the day, here we are, the first few days of camp. This guy's out here, you know, making major adjustments on deep posts. Mahomes underthrows him on one. The guy adjusts, gets back, makes the catch. House call, no big deal. He's catching comebacks. He's catching other in-breaking routes, and he's just making the defense look silly. Every time I turn around, this guy's got a highlight on Twitter. I love Skyy Moore. The big thing we talked about, you know, pre-draft, during the draft process, he is a crisp, concise, controlled route runner, and that is what he brings to the table. And those guys get open with frequency, and with a quarterback like Mahomes, who he can throw it to anybody. You know, hey, we love Kelsey. We love Tyreek Hill back, you know, when he was throwing to those guys. This is a guy who can get open. If he's open, guess what? Mahomes is going to find him. I had him as a late season breakout, you know, that week 8, 9, 10 guy, kind of like last year with Eli Moore and Amon-Ra. But, you know, if he keeps this up through the preseason, they're not going to be able to keep him off the field. This is going to be a situation where people who are reaching on MVS early are probably going to be disappointed because he could push MVS off the field.
Right. Well, and I think that when you look back at like our first 2 discussions about the Chiefs in general, and one of the things that you and I kept complaining about last year when we were watching their offense was what the Juju factor is hopefully going to be. And it was that reliable sort of slot, big body guy that can move the chains when necessary. Josh Gordon, everyone thought he was there to run 70-yard go routes. He was there to be the big body chain mover for them primarily. And they lost Tyreek Hill. They brought in Juju, and I think that their offense on paper looks more well-rounded. But the Tyreek Hill role isn't going to be McCole Hardman. And if anyone's going to take that role in the next year or two, it's going to be Skyy Moore. And I don't think he's going to be Tyreek Hill, but his role in this offense, everyone's talking about Juju. There was the MVS hype, X, Y, and Z with all these different guys and all the different rationalities. But the truth is that if anyone right here on this team that I'm putting my money on in Dynasty as a wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes over the next 3 to 4 years, it's Skyy Moore. And that was the rationale that you and I went through a million times this offseason during rookie drafts and was like, how early do I take this guy? Because if the chances are the same that he hits as all these other rookie wide receivers, but he's tied to Mahomes, like how much is that worth? And we're starting to see it with the hype. Yeah, if it pans out, it's worth all of it. It's worth everything.
You know, you mentioned Juju. You know, I love Mahomes throwing into the slot. I mean, you see how well he works the middle of the field with Kelsey. We're going to see more of that with Juju also. Juju is going to be hyper productive. So I'm not worried about, you know, Juju. I mean, I think he's a worthwhile asset in redraft and dynasty still. This will be a situation where in 2 or 3 years, where we see Kelsey maybe start to finally trail off or drop off. This offense in 3 years could very well be Mahomes throwing it to Juju and Skyy Moore a gazillion times, and they don't miss a beat from the Hill Kelsey Mahomes days. It just turns into the Juju Skyy Moore, you know, Mahomes team, and they just keep on clipping. And that's going to be really interesting to watch. But I have all the faith in the world in Skyy Moore. He's one of my highest graded wide receivers in this class.
Yeah, and there's a great Twitter thread. I will link it in the Twitter bio. I can't remember the guy's name, but I sent it to you. He did the breakdown of all of the stuff about Skyy that you should like.
And no more threads, by the way. Let's not do threads anymore. I saw a thread and I was like,
they're driving me crazy. And I think Twitter is actually encouraging them now because it gives you the option when you tweet. So it's making more people. Anyway, so when I was putting this show together, I put in the show notes like an order of teams and with no timestamps. Just ignore that. If you're watching right now, I can't see it. We're just going to run through all the teams. And we're in the AFC West right now. So you want to hit on a couple other AFC teams? Have you seen anything from the Broncos or the Raiders that's caught your eye? And just for those watching, the game plan Jeff and I had here was for me to essentially bring up most of these situations and then let Jeff expand upon them, because he's been watching TV with the news on this all day. I have not. I've been working in the yard laying gravel for 4 hours.
all day today, and I work from home, and so I usually have it on in the background while I'm working anyway. So for the last several days, it's just been NFL Network from 8:30 a.m. Eastern until about 6 p.m. Eastern. So I get all the inside training camp stuff. Anyway, let's hit the Broncos.
Right.
Look, Javonte Williams is going to be the man. If you're worried about the split from last year and you're worried about this thing being a near 50-50 split, don't be. It's going to be predominantly Javonte Williams between the tackles. We're going to see a lot of Melvin Gordon near the goal line, though. That's where fantasy owners are going to get really stressed out.
And I've seen that. Melvin Gordon's apparently looked great.
Yeah, he's looked really good, and they want to use him as that hammer by the goal line.
Right.
Javonte makes a lot of people miss, especially in the hole. He can make you miss in a phone booth. No big deal.
Yeah.
I love it. He's going to be the guy. He'll out-touch Melvin Gordon by 100 touches, but they'll probably be closer than expected in total fantasy points. Melvin Gordon, I think he's mostly washed. He's kind of over that touch threshold limit that I like to look at when I'm considering running backs. Cleared that 1,600 mark last year. I'm really worried about the way that's going to play out for him. So, give me Javonte. I'm going to punt Melgo, and I'm going to let somebody else draft him. But you know what? If you need him in a pinch, that's a touchdown-heavy option that could be really worth something in a high-powered offense.
So is this correlating directly to anything that you've seen on Twitter, or is it NFL Network, or just general predictions?
I have been just scrubbing down NFL Network and watching the coverage myself. And then, of course, I go and I check up on what the beat writers are saying and all that kind of stuff. I generally take the beat writer stuff, I don't say with a grain of salt, but I try to weed through the BS on it because a lot of times the beat writers, half of them kind of know what they're talking about, and the other half are just all hyperbole. So it's really hard to weed out what makes sense.
Well, there's also, you saw it, if you check out the GR handle, I made a really stupid thread earlier. I'll take responsibility for it, but the point was threads are stupid. But it's Skyy Moore, like news from beat reporters, and it's the thread of that. And if you look at them, 3 or 4 of them, it's just a beat reporter saying, hey, this catch, look at it. This catch is incredible. And then it gets like 3,000 retweets, and you see a Dynasty post on the subreddit about it. And I'm like, all right, look for the other reports. That doesn't matter.
Right.
But anyway, moving on. So the Broncos, Javonte Williams, anything defensively that you've heard that's popping around for our IDP players?
I actually had a post on Twitter just kind of doing their snapshot. And, the Broncos are one of those teams where it's like they're going to be really good defensively. That secondary is legit. Their front seven, though, you've got a rotator cuff injury for Randy Gregory that has been largely overlooked by a lot of the IDP community. This is a guy that should be ready for week 1, but if he's not, we're going to have a major rotation by a team that expects to have a lot of pressure on the quarterback and a lot of high-powered games. A lot of opportunity for sacks, but you're going to be looking at guys like Malik Reed. You're going to be looking at guys like Bradley Chubb. You might even see some Baron Browning. All of those guys are going to get a little bit of production, and then it's going to turn into major cannibalization. I really like Josie Jewell. He's being overlooked in a ton of drafts. He's not going to wow anybody, but if you can take him at the end of the draft and he's a linebacker 2 or 3 for you,
sure,
that's a major league win, right? That allows you to spend earlier draft capital on more reliable pass rushers. Hell, even get a premium defensive back in there and give yourself other positional advantages. But yeah, that's probably the quick IDP note on Denver.
Quick note on Josie Jewell and just beat reporter stuff. This is an example of something that typically won't mean a ton, but I think in the context of the Broncos and their transitions this offseason made me perk my ears up. And their GM 2 or 3 months ago was being asked about the general roster movement that they were planning on, and he mentioned Josie Jewell as the guy he had to have back, and essentially said that guy was in the end the rock of our defense last year before he got hurt. And if you look at IDP, it correlated, and he was on path to an LB1 season last year, and then he tore his pec and was out. So I'm not saying he's going to be an LB1 this year, but everything you said lines up with this small little blurb that made me pay attention to the name.
Here's the only thing you've got to worry about when it comes to that linebacker production for Josie Jewell is that the type of production they're going to see late in games isn't going to be the same as it was in 2021.
Yes.
So you're not going to see as many run plays in the second half of games. So tackle opportunity is going to come down, but he'll still be on the field in sub. So he's still going to be in coverage. And that means he can still get passes to fence, interceptions, downfield tackles, whatever. But it could limit his tackle upside, and it could bring him from being, potential LB1, LB2 to being a 2 or a 3. Simply by nature of being in shootouts later in the
Yeah, Gator.
Game. Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to read Gator and trying to talk. I'm like, I can't do both.
Yeah, well, and it's actually a great parallel to eventually when we hit the Seahawks. I hope that somebody you bring up is Jordan Brooks, but it's the opposite. Jordan Brooks this year is getting the Josie Jewell role last year, where you're playing on a team that has no offense. So your IDP linebacker is going to have the best opportunity. But
right.
Yeah, I get that. Jewell is not. I'm not putting my money on him in IDP this year, but if I can get him for cheap, like he's going to be a fine LB3, LB2 type guy that you could play in here and there.
Ronnie, we were in a startup dynasty draft, a couple months ago, and Josie Jewell was still available in like the 18th, 20th round.
Yeah.
It was real late, and everyone had backers already. Like people just kept skipping right over him. And I was in 2 other drafts recently where I was kind of looking around, and there's Josie Jewell just staring at me in round 20 again. And I just keep taking him because I'm like, I just feel like that value's too good. I'm like, well, I mean, look, I'm going to take this guy, and is he an LB1? No, but I'm taking him as my 3rd linebacker potentially. And in round 20, I'm like, why not?
He could be a steal, man. And it's one of those situations where I think people just don't know really what they're going to do. And when we drafted as well, the Broncos weren't done making moves, and people, I think, at that point were like, is Alexander Johnson coming back? Are they going to make a move for someone like Quan Alexander? So on the waivers last week.
That is wild. That's saucy. Good job, Gator, getting Jewell off waivers. That's awesome.
So anyway, he's not going to stay that unseen value, especially if camp reports start to leak and you see him play a little bit in preseason and all the casuals are like, oh, who's this guy? But for now, he's a great value and you can get him for nothing. Let's move on to the Raiders. Do you have anything from them?
This will be really quick. The Raiders are all overpriced right now. You start thinking about Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. Both those guys are probably overpriced for what they are. For them to maintain target shares anywhere near where their traditional career averages are, they would have to encompass like 76% of all of the targets for the team. It's not likely. So here's the deal. Somebody's going to take a hit. I don't know who's going to take a hit. If I'm going to take one and I want to be attached to the offense, I'm going to take Renfrow because if nothing else, that guy is reliable at moving the chains on 3rd down. So if you get points for 1st downs, you're in a PPR league, he may only catch 60 passes, but if he catches 60 passes for 610 yards and gets you a handful of touchdowns, he's a reliable wide receiver 4 at that point. Like that's a guy you can plug in.
And you're saying that not that you're then taking, I want to clarify for the listeners, you're not taking Renfrow over Waller or Adams.
No,
you're not willing to pay as much for Waller and Adams as you are going to get with
Renfrow is damn near free comparatively.
Yes.
And well, so
and like your prediction could be right. There's also a very good chance that Renfrow is the guy that gets cut out, and that's probably what is keeping people away. But I tend to be along the line of thought that Devontae Adams and Darren Waller are going to eat into each other's workload a decent amount, and Renfrow is the guy that his targets exploded last year while Waller was hurt, and I get that. However, if the defense keying in on those two, Renfrow is going to be playing around with some cornerback 3 that is coming off a practice squad every week, and he's going to be open every single game. So
and he's just one of those guys where he's not a sexy pick. No one feels good drafting Hunter Renfrow, but he's just a guy that knows how to get open, and those guys always have a role, and they always manage to put up production. The question you have to ask yourself is, in that offense, in shootouts every week, can this guy get me 5 for 50 in PPR? Yeah. And the answer is more weeks than not. So you know what? Renfrow at his price, I'll take it over some of the other guys at their price. So
what about
the Chargers?
What about the running back situation? I have seen good things about Zamir White, but I don't care for a redraft this year. Look, I haven't heard anything bad about Jacobs or Good, though.
This is all going to be smoke. At the end of the day, cream rises to the top. Jacobs is the best back they have. Zamir White is fine, whatever. They drafted him. They also brought in guys like Brandon Bolden, who has a history with McDaniels. And there's a million storylines you can try to run with in this backfield. Fact is, it's Jacobs. Stick with Jacobs. Anybody else you're trying to roll out and redraft at that point is probably a reach. Dynasty, Zamir White makes sense because Jacobs will probably be gone at the end of his contract, which I think is this year.
Yep. I'm still not paying a ton for Zamir in Dynasty, though. But that's another discussion for
he's
another day.
Replaceable. This is a guy that likely gets replaced in a year or 2 and doesn't become a long-term asset. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I doubt it.
No, I don't think you are. Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders,
Bolts.
Obviously. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, we're just looking at time here. We got a bunch of teams to go through.
Yep.
The Chargers, obviously, our guy Herbert looks great, right?
Keenan Allen and Herbert. I did see that on Twitter like 17 times today. Everyone was worried about Keenan Allen getting usurped by Mike Williams, and Justin Herbert today at least said, nah.
Here's the thing. There's no tight end there. Yeah. Okay. Gerald Everett, don't care.
Donald Parham.
Stop it. I mean, you mean Donald Vulture. He's just going to vulture a couple goal line touchdowns. Fact is, Herbert can support 2 high-end wide receivers. If Mike Williams is healthy and he's in the role like we saw the first 5 or 6 weeks last year where he was going absolutely ham sandwich, you know what? He and Keenan Allen are both great. There was no flies on that tandem. You don't need a tight end. Even Eckler can still get in on the act. He doesn't have to catch 100 balls. So there's really not Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. It's both. It's one of those rare situations where the quarterback is so good, the division's going to be, again, AFC West is going to be like the Wild West. It's going to be all shootouts, man. I don't care how good the defenses are. It's going to be a lot of points put on the board. And so it means a lot of catches, a lot of fantasy goodness. I'm okay drafting any of those guys.
So I put a comment, Herbert can support 2 wide receivers. So don't get lost in Williams or Allen if you're drafting. Just take whichever one falls to you and be happy.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have, beyond that though, I haven't heard anything camp-wise particularly fascinating from the Raiders.
There's nothing new or exciting. It's really what you expect.
Okay, well, you pick the next division, and
why don't we just stay in the West?
To be the New York Giants, but you say whatever you want.
Well, why don't we just do the NFC West? We'll do the 2 West teams, and then we'll do the 2 East teams, or the 2 East
All right,
divisions.
take it off with my boys, the Hawks, and whatever that is.
The Sea Chickens? Oh, sorry, yeah. Seahawks? Sorry, card-carrying 49ers fan here.
Yeah.
Look, the Seattle Seahawks are going to be the number 1 team in terms of tackle.
You guys might beat us for once this year.
In terms of tackle opportunity, right? I'm going to start on the defensive side here. What's really exciting about them is if you're playing IDP, Jordan Brooks is probably going to be the number 1 linebacker when the season's over. This guy's an absolute tackle machine. He's one of the few guys that can actually get from sideline to sideline. I know it's kind of cliched, but it's, you can actually play the entire field, run and hit, get everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's a tight end catching a ball over the middle or if it's a running back in the backfield, the guy is there. Cody Barton is a worthwhile investment too. The thing you got to keep an eye on right now, Jamal Adams. Looks like he re-injured his fingers. Yeah, re-injured the fingers that he had surgically repaired, this past season. Looks like he got him caught in somebody's helmet. And so it's a Gator. We should put that comment up. So Jamal Adams re-injured the fingers. He may need to have them repaired again surgically. And if that's the case, they're talking about waiting and doing it next off season. So this could be a guy where he's in and out of lineups. His hand might not be as functional as we want it to be. I was fully on board with the idea of Jamal Adams as a potential high-end DB1, simply because that tackle opportunity is going to be bonkers. Seattle is also committed to using Adams in a way like we saw in 2020, where he was up in the box, getting after the quarterback, used almost as an extra linebacker and not so much downfield in coverage. Adams, Brooks, studs. Cody Barton is that guy on the fringe. I see a lot of analysts putting him up in the top 15, top 24. Might be a little too high, might be a little, a little too rich. But here's the thing. He's definitely a top 30 guy. And if anything happens to Adams or Brooks and they miss time, Cody Barton becomes the next tackler. Gator, I'm going to drag Lance out for a good half hour, my man. He wants to know how long we're going to talk about Lance. But
listen,
let's talk about Seahawks offense.
The Cody Barton thing, I'm not even going to say everything you just said again, like a lot of people like to. Cody Barton, go back to some of our previous shows when we did linebacker overviews and go look on Twitter. Cody Barton, all the information you need in the world on that guy and his situation is floating around on the internet right now. And if you've missed it, you shouldn't. He's going to be an LB2 with potential boom weeks, and he's going to be fine this year. Everything else, though, I agree. The biggest news I've seen is Jamal Adams. And I don't think he's going to play a full slate of games again this year. And I bet you if I could take an over-under on 50% of games played, I might take the under again.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but
I know. I am too. I hope so too. I like Jamal Adams. It just
let's hit him on offense.
Yep.
Looks like Drew Lock is currently outsnapping Geno Smith in the QB1 spot. If I'm the Seahawks, if I'm a Seahawks fan, I would much rather have Geno Smith based on how he played with DK last year. Drew Lock didn't look great in Denver.
The only way that makes sense to me is if they're like, these guys both suck, but this is a shiny new toy. Let's at least just like force it.
Maybe.
And then if it blows up, like
maybe that's it. And then of course you've got the Walker versus Penny kind of situation. Right. I know you call Rashad Penny the impossible whopper. I don't know if I can see him being he had a few really good games last year. I don't know if I can see him taking that load for 17 games. I do like, Kenneth Walker. I think he's a talented runner. I've seen a lot of Kenny Walker hate out there on Twitter recently.
Yeah.
It might be a little overblown. This is
seen some hate from some people that I really like the opinion of too. I've been surprised by it.
Look, he's a good football player. I don't love the situation when you're talking about football teams that frankly don't profile to be very good. You run into a spot where running backs tend to lack production, right? Kenny Walker's a good player. He's going to have production. Seattle will rebound. They just need a passer.
So the one thing from camp that you didn't bring up, the DK Metcalf situation in Seattle, I think is going to be fine for fantasy. He's going to get peppered with targets, and it looks like he's going to be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 this year. And if you're banking on wide receiver 1 from him, you might want to wait until 2024 for that.
Yeah, I mean, they gave him the contract and all that. But here's the thing. If Geno Smith's playing, I really like DK. If it's Drew Lock, we don't know where the football's going.
Yeah, so, watch it be Noah Fant, tight end 1. God.
Could be.
Anyway, I don't even want to waste any more time on that offense. It's irrelevant. Let's move over to the 49ers. Trey Lance, it's 25 minutes, 45 seconds in right now. I'm cutting you off at 28 minutes.
You let me talk longer about everybody else. Here's the deal. Trey Lance makes Brandon Ayuk relevant.
Yes.
I am, for being a 49ers fan and all of that, I was actually in the camp of I wanted Mac Jones. So I'm not exactly a Trey Lance stan here. I think he can be a quarterback. If Kyle Shanahan says he's the guy and he can be the guy, cool. I'm with that. Can he run? Yes. Does he add an extra dimension to the offense? Yes. Am I willing to go out of my way and draft him as a QB1 right now in redraft? I had to in the Scott Fish Bowl due to a lack of other options, but I don't know if I'm doing it as early as some other folks. So that's Trey Lance in a nutshell. He's been up and down. That's it.
Well, I think that, what it really reminds me of, and this is a quick aside, and I'll move on for Trey Lance as well. You remember last year, and do not get focused on comparing the two players, but the two situations for fantasy, it reminds me so much of the Jalen Hurts situation in Philadelphia, where you looked at it and you were just like, if this guy plays a full slate, there is guaranteed floor here. So why not bank on the upside? And I'm kind of feeling the same way about Trey Lance this year. If he hits, he's going to hit huge. He might not, but whatever. I agree, though. I'm not banking on it this year.
What'll be more interesting is the pass catcher usage. This isn't going to be the same. We're not going to the same Debo usage we saw last year. That's part of the contract negotiations. So we're not going to see the same carries out of the backfield and the same looks that way. And really, if you take that rushing out of the equation, he loses about 70 points on the season in fantasy. That's painful. And so really, I'm looking at a lot more Ayuk. He's really, really good after the catch. People forget how good he was, in terms of 2020 when he was the only guy and Debo wasn't there because he was hurt.
We're talking about camp reports. Did you see the camp reports about Ayuk and Lance today?
Hey, look, those guys look good.
A lot of mind meld stuff, just typical.
Yeah, they're on the same page. They've got it dialed in. We saw that in the preseason last year too. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. It's the biggest thing for Ayuk is he practicing hard? Because that's what got him screwed up last year, right? And so as long as he's allowed on the field and they just turn him loose to play. Gator, Ayuk could be so good. That coaching staff just hurts the team.
Oh, you had me in the first half. I was like, all right.
I love it. I love this because as a 49ers fan, I'll tell you, I love Kyle Shanahan for about 56 minutes of any football game. Yeah. The last 2 minutes of any half, he actually terrifies me. But I think Ayuk's going to be fine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being like the biggest value in the offense. You can take him significantly later, and his performance could be similar, not Debo last year, but to Debo this year. And I think they could be a lot more similar than people expect. So
we don't need to spend the whole time on it right now, but at some point in the future, and if you're just entertaining ideas in your dynasty leagues or redraft leagues, I do think that there's merit to bumping George Kittle a little bit ever since we saw the Trey Lance move. And it could be a situation that's actually worse for Kittle. But of all of the guys and the very lazy narrative to fall back on rookie wide receivers and tight ends, we do have a little bit of that there. So keep an eye on George Kittle. I don't have anything really substantial to say about that right now. I haven't heard anything.
Sure.
Before we move on, I just want to make a quick note. So Gator, especially since you're still watching, thanks. Typically we try to throw in graphics and we try to do all this fun stuff, but we're at this point in the off season where you're either going to sit down and you're going to put a lot of time and effort to make content that is being regurgitated in 70 different places, or we decided let's just hit the brass tacks and talk about the training camp news this week and keep it simple.
Right
so that's why there's not a lot of bells and whistles this week, and I hope everyone is still enjoying the content that's coming. And I'm actually learning a little bit from Jeff right now because, like I said, I've been outdoors. I know it doesn't look like it. I look like a vampire, but I have been outdoors for the last 2 weekends doing some yard work and moving on.
We're at 30 minutes.
Moving on, 30 minutes. We're doing well. Moving on. Well, let's knock out
6 teams.
Give me one more team in the NFC West out of the Rams and the Cardinals that you think none of the news right now is relevant.
Sorry, I couldn't control my face just now.
I was rambling.
Man, that's tough.
Or they both have relevant news and we have to talk about it.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to hit them real fast. Cardinals, okay. Hollywood Brown's probably being overrated a little bit. The guy's already nicked up. He's already missing some time in practice. That's becoming a problem. Without D-Hop the first 6 weeks, that could be an issue where, hey, we're wheels up on Zach Ertz, right? We like him a lot. Keep an eye on that backfield. We're not seeing a lot of clarity. Yeah, James Conner could be the guy, but do we really think he's going to be a 300-touch player? Of course not. No. The number 2 there is going to be valuable, so keep your eyes on it. Defensively, everyone's playing out of position there. I don't know what's going on. They should really be running a 4-3, but they're running a 3-4, and Marcus Golden, frankly, isn't Chandler Jones. Sorry, Marcus. I got lambasted. I got lambasted on Twitter by somebody who's in Marcus Golden's camp for saying that or something similar to that.
I'm going to clip this and I'm going to put it on Twitter and at you, and I'm going to tag Marcus Golden in it.
No, we're not doing that again. I don't need to be lambasted twice in the same week for that. Fact is, he's a productive player for IDP, 10 sacks, maybe 12. It's going to be great. And then you're going to turn around and get no tackles. That's going to be your best edge rusher there. It's still Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, and then punt the rest of that front 7 for IDP purposes. Let's talk about the Rams real quick. Ernest Jones is getting reps, not just at linebacker in terms of playing in the middle, next to Bobby Wagner, but he's getting some shots to get after the quarterback too. So if you're playing Ernest Jones and you like Ernest Jones as a player, have him in Dynasty, or you're looking for another backer, that's a guy who might have some sneaky sack upside. He's not going to go out there and get you double digits, but if he goes out and gets you, let's just say, 90-ish tackles, then he chips in 5 more sacks, he's a super viable linebacker, and you're not having to pay the premium price for him.
I know. I went him over Pete Werner in a league as dart throws in that league we were talking about, and I've regretted it a little bit. I think they'll both be fine, but I like
Don't regret it. Last camp note on the Rams, though, Allen Robinson looks incredible, exactly as advertised, and it's everything Sean McVay could have possibly wanted. The better he does, I think, the smaller the chances OBJ goes back. So OBJ watch is on in full effect. I expect it. I would love it. I love it. I want Odell and Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. That would be phenomenal. But that's the NFC West. Hit me with questions. What else you got?
The only thing that you didn't hit on, because I pay more attention to the Seahawks than other teams, I hate it. But the rookie they took last year at wide receiver, I'm not even going to say his name because I think he is. Damn it. I feel like he's cursed because he's hurt again. And it's not uncommon. The Seahawks have drafted consistently for 10 years.
I was trying to stick with fantasy relevant players, Ronnie.
2 of the rookies they take every year are hurt for their whole career. It happens every year. Look up the numbers. Fact. Moving on to...
No, wait. Gator's got a question. He wants to know how valuable Wagner's going to be in IDP. You know what? He's phenomenal. He's still going to be a linebacker 1-ish. Like, this is a guy where you're talking about he fills the gaps, and anytime you're playing behind Aaron Donald,
I was going to say his ability to use his instincts and his knowledge this year is going to be at a premium.
Yeah, I don't care how old he is. I don't care that he's lost a half a step. You've got Aaron Donald and Greg Gaines in front of you, and those guys between them eat up like 4 blocks. And that leaves Bobby Wagner free to do more than he's ever done in Seattle in the last 6 years. So he's got a sneaky solo tackle upside. So if you get bonuses for solo tackles, super, super high value right there.
I'm just going to tack on my one, the biggest thing for me with Bobby in Arizona, or not in Arizona.
You don't even know where you are right now.
Is when he played last year, every single Seahawks game, it looked like he wanted to do something that he couldn't do because of the personnel that he was playing with. And you saw Jordan Brooks actually take up a lot of the athletic slack on that defense. But Bobby this year is going to actually choose the easiest course of action for a 33-year-old linebacker to make the most impactful play and not feel like he's letting his team down because of how good the Rams are. So I think he's knocked things out of the park.
Yeah, he and Ernest Jones are going to make a really nice pair.
Yeah. Let's do the NFC East real quick, just because Danny Dongle needs to be brought up, and Daniel Jones, that situation and the weird parallel between that and everything that's happening with Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson.
Well, Danny Dimes looks terrible,
Yes.
and that's why we call him Danny Dongle.
Yes.
The reports on him have been less than stellar. It's, depending who you talk to, you get the occasional glimmer of hope, and then it's usually followed by immediate disappointment. So, the sun has gotten to my dude. Gator's got your number, man. So you got to keep putting his posts up here. He's funny. Check. Sorry, I got distracted. I got to stop looking at the chat.
Look, dude, I'm overdosed with vitamin D right now. I can't think straight.
That's it. So yeah, Danny Dimes hasn't been great. I don't love it. I think it really hurts Galladay. Shepard's obviously not going to be back anytime soon. Kadarius Toney's made some nice catches, but every time I see him doing something, I see a really badly thrown ball. And so where I'm at with it is Kadarius Toney, I think he's been kind of a bonehead, right? Like he got thrown out of the one game he was good in last year. And then you had the weird trade request thing. You didn't want to report to camp. You had the rap video thing or whatever he was trying to do.
Idiot.
Yeah. And I think on a previous episode, I might've said he's suffering from a severe case of, late stage Le'Veon Bell.
Yes.
And
like a cancer.
So, yeah, it's like a brain eating amoeba that kind of makes you dumber. So the fact is, the kid has all the talent on the planet, right? He can play. He was a first rounder, for crying out loud. If he can keep his head on right and he can make the kind of plays we've seen from him so far in camp in the regular season, he's going to be one of those guys that people took super late, and he's going to end up winning you a league. And I hate saying, league winner, because everybody has 1,000 of those. But he could be a guy you're taking in like round 12 or 13 or some craziness like that.
ADP of 120, something like that.
Yeah.
Right now.
So what's it, like 10th round, 11th round?
Yeah, it's actually a little higher than I like for Toney.
Yeah, I mean, same. But if you're taking the upside, right?
Sure.
So I'm hard pressed to take him because I don't think he keeps his head on straight. I kind of think the guy's a little bit of a bonehead. I'm a little excited about Wan'Dale Robinson, though.
The guy's been Wan'Dale for free.
Yeah, give me Wan'Dale for free. He's been a spark plug. And here's the thing. Saquon goes down again. Okay, let's just play along for a second. If Saquon goes down, you've got Matt Breida and Wan'Dale Robinson. Because Wan'Dale's taking snaps out of the backfield. He's taking them in the slot. He's been on the perimeter. And they're getting him the ball in all kinds of ways in space. That matters. With his ability to kind of move like a Dante Hall type, that human joystick. I'm old enough to remember Dante Hall. Look him up if you're not.
Oh, hands down the best highlights of all time. Moving on.
Absolutely. But, those are some guys that are really exciting. However, what I'm hoping for is that the Giants brass finally get tired of this nonsense with Daniel Jones and they call the 49ers and give them a 4th round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Because they're not getting crap else. So get Garoppolo in there and let Garoppolo dink and dunk to Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney and let those guys use their athleticism to make some big time plays. Open up the field for Saquon.
Accurately to Saquon on some wheel routes.
Let him throw the ball accurately to anybody because nobody in Giants world has seen that since Eli Manning, retired.
And it's not even like Jimmy G is like a god at football either, but he's so much better than what they've had since like peak Eli. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But anyway, that's the Giants offense. Their defense is going to be sneaky good. I am going to be playing them week 1 against Tennessee. Not even Blake Martinez. He's not even like the first 3 guys on my list. So here's where I'm at. I'm going to be taking them on DraftKings week 1 in a ton of lineups. They've got Tennessee. That front 7 is dirty. Okay. Kayvon Thibodeau. I've had my reservations about him. Does he quit on plays? Does he not quit on plays? You cannot argue with the talent. I love him coming off the edge. Azeez Ojulari's looked good. He's been a little nicked up too, but that's a guy that can also play at a UGA. You've got Leonard Williams there. Then you've got Blake Martinez there. They have all these dudes. Xavier McKinney's looked really good. Dane Belton's looking really good out of Iowa. All these guys are all making really big strides down the middle of the field. Their front 7 is strong. Both safeties look good. Their corners are terrible. They cannot cover anybody. But good news. Tennessee doesn't throw the football, so it doesn't matter. So I think the Giants can go out, shock the world, and knock off Tennessee in week 1 as long as they can put up 5 field goals.
If that happens, I'm clipping this and putting it on Twitter until someone says something really mean to you or nice to you. So the Giants, moving on from that, flipping down to the Commanders, if that's what they're calling themselves now.
They are.
Whatever is going on in that stupid team's stadium. Anyway, have you heard anything outside of the Jahan Dotson? Like, he looked great in rookie minicamp. I didn't see a lot on Twitter today, and I'm sure I missed something. Nothing.
Apparently, Carson Wentz looks really good.
Interesting.
That's
probably
been the story
why I
so far.
I probably ignored it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it was the normal stuff. And to me, when I heard it from Ron Rivera when he was in an interview, and I'm sitting here listening to it, and I'm thinking to myself, it kind of feels like we talk about Russ had the what was it, the Bible study.
Oh yeah,
like
if
they were in the same.
With you and Jordan Vanek about that.
Yeah, we were in. It's like if they're in Bible study together, they got targets. I kind of feel like Ron Rivera and Carson Wentz they're in the same Bible study group. So I don't know if you're going to see one impact the other. But
I'm not putting comment up on the screen.
He says Wentz QB1. I don't know if I can get into that. I mean, you're talking. I think he's QB2.
The Commanders depth chart, sure.
Hey, give me the Heineken. No, but seriously, he's apparently looked really good.
So there's nothing beyond Carson Wentz has looked like he's like what they wanted.
Yeah, he's just a steady hand, getting it to McLaurin, getting it to Dotson. What you really need to pay attention to right now is the backfield. They brought in Brian Robinson. You've got Antonio Gibson, and they spent up to bring J.D. McKissic back. And so when you start thinking about that backfield, it's like, does Gibson have a role?
That's me.
And it's I think it means Ron Rivera, not you. No one's quoting you. No one cares what you think.
I will say that what I've seen today, it makes all the Gibson like freak out stuff from this preseason seem like absolute just cannon fodder that people were clicking through just to click through. I think Gibson's going to be fine and have the same role he's had. Then it's just not a role that I'm going to pay for as a RB1.
Yeah, it's going to be split 3 ways. I would be leery of taking Gibson at ADP.
Yes.
But if somebody's going to give him to me, just throw him at me in a trade, especially in Dynasty. The guy's going to land somewhere. He's a good enough runner. I'm not worried that he fumbled 6 times last year. That's not a sticky stat. Don't care. So that's the gist of the Commanders right now. Chase Young will not play week 1, may not play the first 4 weeks if you're into IDP.
Really?
So that's going to be a guy that'll probably start the season on IR. Oh, well, there's Gator. He's asking about Gibby. He feels like he's done. I don't think he's done. I think this is a player that still needs a little bit of work for Antonio Gibson. Yeah.
I'm assuming that's you. I'm thinking Gibraltar from Apex Legends. I got to stop playing video games.
What is that to do with fantasy football? Where are you right now?
I don't know what's happening.
No, and look, Gibson is a good player. He's not a great player. That's the thing. You brought in Brian Robinson. He's more of a hammer, and he can catch the ball. You spent up to bring back McKissic to keep him from going to Buffalo. Gibson's probably not staying in Washington. This is a guy that's going to end up elsewhere, and he's probably going to be fine. He'll be a serviceable RB2-3 for a long time. I'd give him the next 4 years or so worth of fantasy value. He's not just going to disappear. He's just he's
never going to be the CMC that Ron Rivera claimed he was going to be.
Exactly. I don't think the RB1 ceiling isn't there anymore. I just don't think we're going to get that role from him. The skill set's there, but he's kind of wasting away in Washington where they're not very good, frankly, and they're not getting to run the football enough for it to be valuable for him.
Okay. Eagles.
Yep.
Just moving on from Gibson.
Yeah.
That's a hard transition right there. Eagles. Jalen Hurts apparently looks great.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything else beyond that.
Yeah, he's been, obviously 2 years in a row, massive improvements. It looks like he's been a lot more accurate, especially in short area, so goal line. That's, you always have to kind of take that with a grain of salt in shorts, right? I want to see guys in pads moving around.
Yeah.
But, the offense has a ton more weapons, right? The offensive line appears to be intact for now. This is a group that usually is in tatters by week 5. So we'll see what they look like. Miles Sanders has been, playing mostly with the 1s. You saw a few tweets out there. Oh, he got 4 snaps with the 2s. Doesn't matter. Do not let that junk scare you. He is the 1. They are going to mix in Kenny Gainwell.
Kenny G.
He'll be a part of everything. Do not freak out. Sanders is one of the more undervalued running backs in terms of being the RB1 on his team and a guy that will lead his team in touches as long as he's healthy. And he's going in the 3rd, 4th round, something like that. So sit tight. Miles Sanders is going to be fine. Defensively, man, this is a really loaded defense. We were talking about the Incredible Hulk, Jordan Davis, trying to figure out how he's going to rotate in. Aging Fletcher Cox is probably going to be the guy he'll mostly rotate in with.
Have we heard anything news-wise about Nakobe Dean?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
Not good, bad, or otherwise.
Okay.
It's just been kind of quiet. Right now, it seems like the shoulder's going to be okay, and he's going to play. So that's the big thing that kept him from going earlier in the draft. He slid into the third round. This is one of the most talented linebacker prospects we've seen in the last 10 years. And the fact that he slid because of a damaged shoulder is, I mean, whatever, overly cautious. I get it. Yeah. But he could end up being a guy that by the end of the year, he's starting for the Eagles. If you took him in Dynasty and a rookie draft, good for you. You probably landed yourself a future LB1.
Sure. I have not seen anything else about the Eagles except for a news story that made me feel good. And it was Quez Watkins apparently has looked fantastic. And I feel bad for the kids because he's not relevant.
Doesn't matter. That's one of those, like, Freifogel from the Cowboys could have looked excellent.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like, good for you, man. I always liked him as a prospect. It's good to see him being good. Are we missing anything from that division that is relevant?
Cowboys. We've not talked about the Cowboys. What are we doing here? How are you going to leave out Big D? What's wrong with you?
Good.
I mean, good grief. You're out here overdosed on vitamin D.
America's team.
Look, Tell me. The Dallas Cowboys are well positioned to give you a lot of fantasy viable players. Offensively, Zeke he's gonna be Zeke, but he's gonna be a fraction of Zeke. All right. Be ready for the drop off. It's coming. I know there's been a lot of he's fine, he's not fine. Look, I know it's not entirely scientific. Zeke broke through my danger zone threshold, that 1,600 touch score mark, where it basically takes in his career carries plus his career receptions. Receptions are timed by 0.75, just kind of weighs him down a little bit. Cleared 1,600 points on this scale. That's the danger zone. He's probably at risk of either talent drop off, production drop off, injury. All these things are coming to play for him at his age with the amount of wear and tear he has on him. Tony Pollard will, I'm going to say this and it's probably going to come back to bite me, will outscore Ezekiel Elliott in fantasy this year. Boom. Boom. Just putting.
I've heard this said over the phone before. It's nice to see it in a public place.
Yeah. So the thing with Tony Pollard is he's being lined up in the slot right now. So even with Zeke on the field, it doesn't matter. It looks like Pollard is one of the leading candidates to catch those passes after CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. So we are talking about the Amari Cooper looks and what's going to happen. Well, Amari Cooper's volume is really going to go to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's old volume is now going to be divvied up, between all these other players. Same thing with the Michael Gallup role, because Gallup's not going to play the first couple of weeks. So, that's where we're at right now. And so, if they use Micah Parsons in the backfield there, Gator, I see word is Dallas be trying to use Parsons in the backfield. I didn't see or hear that officially. I heard it joked about, but I didn't see it official. If that happens, that'll be dynamite. because I've got Micah Parsons everywhere.
So freaking stupid to do that with your most valuable defensive player. But whatever.
Could you imagine Micah Parsons on a bubble screen with his speed?
Oh, it'd be disgusting. I'm not going to deny it. Be like, what if you gave Myles Garrett the ball on a draw? Like,
but he's not as fast. He's not as fast.
But he'd run over two people in the process.
Look, at the end of the day, Pollard's super valuable. Jalen Tolbert, kind of that sleeper guy. Keep your eyes on that offense, though, because they need a slot receiver still. And if it's not going to be Tony Pollard, it might be the kid they picked up from the USFL. And
I know. What's his name? I know exactly you're talking about.
And I can't – his name just escaped me, but they picked him up from the USFL. He was like their MVP, rookie out of TCU, basically. But he had a bunch of DB problems. Turpin, that's the one. Yeah. And so the Turpin kid is really small, 155 pounds small. Probably going to be a returner. However, he's a slot. If you go back and check out his TCU tape, this guy's all over the field, and he's quick and he's fast. So it'd be really interesting to see him get onto the field in specific packages. So if you're looking for a deep cut, super deep, hate the term sleeper, but this might qualify. The Turpin kid could be someone who's useful. He could be nothing, but that's just a name to kind of keep on the radar.
I'm going to do something here as a gift to our friend of the show, friend of the site, friend of our hearts, Jordan Vanek over at 33rd Team. Give me one player on the Miami Dolphins that all the hype is real about right now.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yes. There you go, Jordan. You're welcome. Let's do
we're in the AFC real quick. Yeah, let's hit the Dolphins. We'll start with them. Look, Tua has looked good all offseason. Yeah. He's doing really well, bringing the receivers together. Obviously, he's been accurate. It was nice seeing that 60-yard strike in the highlight video that everyone's been watching over and over again. Jordan's been sending me different clips of crowds going nuts over that particular play. So absolutely hilarious. But make no mistake, Mike McDaniel run game coordinator in San Francisco did great with that. This is going to be a pass-first offense. They've told us who they are. They went out and they got Tyreek Hill. They went out and they got Cedric Wilson. They went out and got a pass-catching back in Chase Edmonds. Then they went out and they brought in just the dried-up husk of Raheem Mostert. Yeah, they got Connor Williams, who's a pass-blocking guard, they moved to center. They went out and got one of the best pass-blocking left tackles in Armstead. They told us who they are. We need to listen.
Yes.
Tua is about to support 3 fantasy-relevant pass catchers, and the running back Chase Edmonds will also be viable. This offense is going to be very exciting. It's going to be a situation where they may not win a ton of games because the AFC is a gauntlet. It's not their fault. The defense just isn't as good as the offense right now. But man, oh man, Tyreek Hill is going to create a ton of space for Jalen Waddle because Waddle's not seeing number 1 coverage this year. So now you're talking about better looks for Waddle and how defenses are going to go ahead and cover up Hill and Waddle. And then what are they thinking about Mike Gesicki?
I know. Well, apparently they're going to make him block because that's what the report was from practice today. He took like more blocking snaps than he ever did last year. Whatever.
Well, they're trying to do that on purpose. The blocking snaps are because he's not a good run blocker, and they want him to be more like George Kittle, a guy they can keep on the field always, and they can put him on the line of scrimmage or split him out. He was, I think, the 3rd most frequently split out tight end in the NFL last year.
Yeah, it was nuts.
So, it was over 70% of his snaps he was split out and basically into a big slot. They really want to be able to bring him in because it helps them set up a lot of the crazy blocking schemes that McDaniel wants to run. So when you're looking at this offense, all the camp reports, they're telling you who they are. This is a pass-first offense. Feel really comfortable with Chase Edmonds. I'm avoiding the rest of the backfield. Feel comfortable with Hill, Waddle, Gesicki. Take them all. People are fading Gesicki, and that's a mistake. This is a guy who'll be a top 6 tight end. Go ahead and go do it. Defensively, there's not a whole lot to see here. I like Channing Tindall in Dynasty, but that's probably about the extent of it.
I can get down with all that, and I haven't seen anything different. So let's talk about Ramondre Stevenson and how overhyped I think he is, but also underhyped he is at the same time.
All right. We both know, and you and I have talked multiple times off air about this. I have not been one of those big Ramondre stans, right? I try to be level about every player that I look at. And he's really made a believer out of me. And this guy has done what he called redistributed his weight. He spent a lot of time.
A little from here, put it down there.
He looks really good. Now, granted, it's in shorts, but, when he came into the league, I was like, Jesus, this guy's Leonard Fournette. Or, like that bigger style, that guy, LeGarrette Blount clone, basically. And, just huge bodied guy. Now he looks a little more trim, a little more cut, right? And so this guy's been working on his pass catching, and apparently he's been leading that team so far in the early practices as the pass catching back. While it might be Damian Harris leading the way on early downs, in passing situations, 3rd down, it could be all Ramondre. And the methodology there, if I'm thinking like Bill Belichick, is, well, that's cool. I'm going to spread you out, go into 11, and then I'm going to take this hammer and slam him right through the soft spot of your defense. Because that's some stuff that Bill would do, right?
Yeah.
And, he went out and he got Devontae Parker, perimeter receiver. He's got Kendrick Bourne, who really, can be on the perimeter. He can be in the slot. He's fine. Jacoby Myers does his best work in the slot. And then you've got Hunter Henry, and you can flip Myers, put in Jonnu Smith, put Jonnu Smith in the backfield. If you want to put two guys in the backfield, we're going to see a lot of Ramondre, and we're going to see him in high leverage situations where when he touches the ball, it's going to be 6, 7, 8 yards or touchdowns, as opposed to when Damian Harris comes in and it's going to be like 3, 4 yards and not a whole lot else.
I think that this is off the cuff, again, a hunch. And my love affair with Ramondre Stevenson, I said this to you off air a little bit. It started with a hunch. I just had watched him play and I had a hunch. I was like, I think it's going to work out with it. And it could be a thing where him and Damian Harris are 50-50 this year and neither guy takes off. But
sure,
when I look at Bill Belichick, I have this hunch that is based on historical data, which is Bill Belichick's coaching trends over the last 20 years, is every 4 or 5 years he reworks what his entire team is doing, and he does it based on his personnel, but mostly actually based on the trends of everyone else's actions. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at these defenses that everyone's building in the NFL right now, and they're getting smaller, they're getting quicker, they're getting more sideline to sideline, they're agile, they're more about passing X, Y, and Z, countering these air raid offenses. And I'm looking at what Bill's doing, and I'm like, this motherfucker, he's building a 1980s offense. He's coming in here, and he's going to show up this upcoming season, and he's going to run a modern, old school offense and blow people away. That's
everybody who's worried about who's calling the plays in New England offensively, they're like, oh, it's Joe Judge. Oh, it's Matt Patricia. Oh, it's whoever. Spoiler alert, it's Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
He is calling the plays. His son is going to call the defense.
Yeah.
I'll just put it out there right now. That's how this is going to go. Bill called his offensive plays his last year in Cleveland. He's done it before in New England. It's not unprecedented. That's why he hasn't named an OC or a DC, because he doesn't want you to know who is going to be the guys. He can't track any of his tendencies.
Yeah. Well, and I also will say my hot take of the year, Mac Jones, most efficient quarterback in the NFL this year. I think Bill Belichick's going to provide that situation for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a guy that can go. He'll be one of those guys that at the end of the year we're going to say, wow, Mac Jones had more games at 70% completion percentage and 250 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions than anybody else.
Yeah,
but he's not going to go out there and give you 400-yard games or 4 touchdown games.
No, he's not going to win your fantasy league. I'm just saying that he's going to go get the job done at a more reasonable clip than anyone else.
If you've got him in the fishbowl, you're going to be stoked because he's going to go ahead and complete 70% every week, and that's going to be great. So
we're at 55 minutes. It's okay if we go a little longer than we had planned, which we already have done. But if we can, let's do a 30-second clip on 2 or 3 of these remaining teams.
Well, we got to hit the Bills and the Jets. We already started the AFC East. So
I know, and that's what. So for the Bills and the Jets, unless there is something super important, can we do a quick one? No?
Okay.
Is there more news?
Let's hit the Jets. Let's start there. Okay. Hey, looks like Breece Hall has been the man. Michael Carter's still getting a lot of work. That's cool. I have been of the mind that we're going to see a split between Carter and Hall, just because this 49ers group, these are guys that come out of that Shanahan coaching tree. They love running multiple backs. Breece Hall might be the guy, be the one, right? Carter's going to spell him more frequently than you'd like, and it's going to get frustrating. Elijah Moore, still the one at receiver. Defensively, they brought in Quan Alexander. I hate that for Jamian Sherwood. I hate that for Hamza Nasruddin. I hate that for Mosley. None of these linebackers are going to be worth a dang. I'm staying away from them.
And you said this off air to me 3 hours ago. It was like that move to me says more about what they think of their current unit than it does about Quan.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you're going out and bringing that guy in, that means you don't feel great about what you have. So my thought here is that I'm staying away from those linebackers unless it's dynasty and I can taxi them. I don't mind sticking Sherwood in the taxi squad and sitting on him for a couple of years, seeing what happens. But, I'm staying away from the rest of the defense. Gator, you're asking 70-30. I'm assuming that's for the Breece Hall, Michael Carter split. Might be more like 60-40.
Yeah, I'd say in between 60-40 and 70-30 would be
Breece,
your projections that you showed me it looked like.
Yeah, it's going to be a little closer than people realize, because I think people are trying to write off Michael Carter, but this is the same regime that went and drafted Michael Carter too. They're not just going to throw this guy aside because they did spend good draft capital on him. They say, 5th round pick. NFL teams value 5th round picks, let me tell you. So there's a reason why guys like Jimmy Garoppolo have still been traded for a 5th round pick.
Right.
So that's the Jets. Let's move on to the Bills. Josh Allen was on NFL Network today, and he says, hey, we're going to spread the ball around. We got a bunch of playmakers. We want to get the ball in the hands of all these different guys. It's going to be Steph Diggs. He's the one, right? Like, that's the guy. But he brought up, James Cook, Devin Singletary. He brought up Gabe Davis, of course. And then there was Crowder and Knox. And he said, look, we've got a lot of different guys who can catch the ball. And the big thing I've got to do now is get the ball to all of these guys. That tells me we're going to have Diggs and a bunch of guys that are going to be sparsely relevant. The Gabe Davis love machine that's been going on Twitter might be a little blown out of proportion. It might be time to scale that back a little bit, because even if he's the 2 in Buffalo, that may not equate to 100 targets. And if you're taking him in rounds, I don't know, what is he going in, round 5 now or something? Round 4? He seemed like he was going really early, and I don't remember the ADP on it. But if you're taking him that early and you're not getting 100 targets, that's not good enough. So that's rough. In terms of pass rushers, linebackers, all that, it's a solid enough front. I like Matt Milano. He's a lot cheaper than Tremaine Edmonds. Both guys are probably going to be, middling linebackers at best. I'm staying away from the safeties. I know that Hyde and Poyer have been great long-term. They're both aging. It's time to start phasing out of those guys and looking at someone else.
So what I heard from you is you need to pay attention to Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. And then James Cook, Devin Singletary, Gabe Davis, Jamison Crowder, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, O.J. Howard, Cole Beasley's mom, Zach Moss, and everyone else you can just kind of ignore.
Hannah Barbera and Milton Bradley.
Yes. Ricky, Ronnie, Bobby, and Mike.
Yeah.
Ignore all those guys.
if you're looking at James Cook and Devin Singletary and trying to make sense of that backfield, James Cook is probably going to be the leading touch, back there in terms of receptions plus carries. However, that number may not be as relevant for fantasy as you want it to be in 2022.
Right. I love James Cook's potential upside long term, but I think this year,
yeah, exactly.
Whatever. It might be great. It might not. I think you're more likely to see a Kenneth Gainwell type season from last year out of James Cook than you are to see a guy that wins you a league.
Sure. So that's all the East and all the West.
All the East, all the West, the North. I don't think we have time to go through all of these.
I don't think so either. I think we really got long-winded. That's my fault.
Let's go ahead and break the word. We titled the show wrong. We're liars. Pick like 3 or 4 more. And we'll close out.
Do you want to just do a second episode? Next weekend, do the rest? We could do.
You know what we could do? Why don't we pick a few more that you think are really important, and then we could come back next week and potentially just isolate the main stories that have stayed true.
I'll tell you what. Let me pull up. I've got all kinds of notes I keep everywhere because
you share it on the screen.
Like that. No, because
okay.
It's all written in gibberish that no one would understand but me.
Fair enough.
It's like.
Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, keep doing the Lord's work out there, Ronnie. Get people to subscribe to the channel. Click the little alarm bell, so you know when we're going to be on.
Yep. www.twitter.com/Ronnie A. Evans is my Twitter.
Weirdo. I think if we were going to do anything in the AFC South, I'll start in the South, go AFC. The Colts, Nyheim Hines. He is catching passes out of the slot. Now, I know we hear a lot of that, but this is a guy with a unique pass-catching ability, and they're going to want to keep Jonathan Taylor fresh at the tail end of the year. So Nyheim Hines might be a sneaky late-round grab that you want to go ahead and secure in a lot of drafts or off free agency or wherever. So that's probably one to look at. Let's see.
I've heard a couple good things about Alec Pierce, but I don't care as much in redraft about that anyway.
Yeah, here's the thing. Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, Nyheim Hines, Mo Alley Cox, just about anybody, Ashton Doolin, all those guys are going to cannibalize each other. I don't love any of them for redraft. Michael Pittman's the guy to have, though. He'll be a wide receiver 1 when the season's over.
Yes.
Might even be top 5. Love that guy. I expect him to see a boatload of targets.
Look, lazy analysis. If you don't want to go back and watch our other shows about Michael Pittman, lazy analysis. Look at Matt Ryan's wide receiver 1 over the last 15 years and just, see what it looks like, and then look at Michael Pittman.
And then couple what Pittman did with Carson Wentz last year and imagine what he could do with a real quarterback.
Yeah.
Let's see. Houston, there's really nothing exciting in Houston, so we'll just bypass them in terms of fantasy. Brandon Cooks is probably the only guy worth mentioning there.
I did see a note from one of their beat reporters, and it's just back of the radar. Dameon Pierce looks like they're saying that he might take over the season or take over the backfield before preseason starts. I don't believe that, but
it'll be he and Marlon Mack. Well, we'll see him and Marlon Mack, so I'm not worried about that. Jacksonville, that's still there's just nothing coming out of Jacksonville. I don't know what to do about their defensive situation. We've got Josh Allen, Chad Muma.
Think about what happened in that place in the prior 14 months leading up to this season. I don't blame them for saying, don't say a damn thing to a single reporter. We're not leaking anything. Yeah. No one knows anything. I don't blame them.
Rumor has it they actually put up 87-foot walls all the way around the entire facility so nobody can see in or out. It actually blots out the sun.
Yeah.
Tennessee Titans, they need pass catchers. Bobby Trees looks like he's okay. Treylon Burks, if you're into Burks, he's the real deal. He looks really good. I don't give a shit about all this garbage you heard about. He's not conditioned, asthma, whatever else, what have you. Don't forget, this time last year
catch anything.
Thank you. That's what was going on a year ago. So Treylon Burks, a year and a half ago, we were talking about him being the 2022 101 in dynasty drafts.
Right.
And then Breece Hall blew up, right? So this guy's got the skills. He's got the talent. He's got the alpha body build. Do not sleep on this guy. He's going to be fine. NFC South, let's buzz through real quick. Drake London obviously looks great. You probably saw all the highlights today. It is Marcus Mariota's team. We're not going to see Des Ridder. So anybody who thinks it'll be Des Ridder by week 4, I'm sorry. I'd agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong. Panthers, it's going to be Baker Mayfield's job. I have some friends that are going to be at practice here in a couple days.
Did you see the tweet where it's Sam Darnold just got off the bus. We did hear a fan yell out, "That's my QB1." It's pretty good. I also was like, I feel bad for Sam, but moving on. Anyway,
I mean, look, and I'm that guy who graded Mike White ahead of Sam Darnold in that draft class. So, give me, that's what I think of Sam Darnold. So sorry, Sam. Let's see, Atlanta. What other news and notes that we have there? There's some reports saying Algier could be the number one guy there.
No.
But so far the practices haven't really shown enough of that. We're still seeing like veteran rest days and things like that for guys like Cordero and Damian Williams. That is going to be something we won't have fleshed out till after the preseason. So don't get too comfortable with what you're hearing out of Atlanta on the running back room.
And Atlanta and Houston. I'm one of the big champions from the beginning about Damian Pierce and Tyler Algier. I'm not going out of my way to draft any of them. They're not going to win you your leagues.
Yeah, and I'm a dummy. I went back to Atlanta and I didn't mean to. The Carolina thing, it's going to be Baker. DJ Moore, by the way, wheels up. That's your pass catcher. It's he and CMC. Forget the rest of them. Maybe Terrace Marshall can make some noise because I find it hard to believe that Robbie, who is now Robbie IE instead of
Robbie Coolio Anderson.
Yeah, he changed his name from Robbie ROBBY to Robbie ROBBIE.
And listen, I would like to just throw it out there for all of the men on this planet whose name starts with RO letter IE. Robbie Anderson, you can shove it, man. Change it back. We don't want you in our crew.
Okay. All right. That's Carolina. I'm just gonna roll on here. New Orleans, hey, J-Mo's looking really good. He's excited to be back on the field. Michael Thomas is back on the field. Nobody's practicing. Nobody's, gotten hurt. Nobody's legs have fallen off. So that's exciting stuff. Also, as we get closer to, was it Monday? I think we've got Alvin Kamara's court date, or not court date, but it's like a hearing that's supposed to go on. We're expected for the attorneys to pull for a continuance. If that becomes the case, we will not have a trial for Alvin Kamara or a court date until January. No suspension. That's what that means. Wheels up on Alvin Kamara. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, Ryan Jensen, stud center. Tom Brady got him to come back when he came out of retirement. Looks like he's wrecked his knee. He's probably done for the year. So that's going to be rough. I would expect Tampa Bay, if they haven't already, to go ahead and get J.C. Treader on the phone and get him in the house.
I saw that he had signed already.
Oh, did he really? Okay, I missed that.
I don't know. I saw something, and then I saw something on Reddit that said he hadn't. I don't know what's going on with that, but I agree.
Yeah, I would need to go look it up. Yeah, they need to get a guy because they were basically replaced Alex Kappa and who was the other guard they lost? They lost Kappa and they lost
whatever.
And my brain spaced. Anyway, fact is, the interior of that O-line not looking great right now, and you can add Julio if you like. I'm not in on that wagon because Mike Evans is still the man there, and then you got Russell Gage. You gave him $30 million versus Julio. You gave like 6 to, and there's a bunch of incentives I think on that 6. So I think we're still going to be okay with Evans. Godwin when he comes back.
Who Julio Gage was 2 years.
Yeah, look, Julio the last 2 years has been damn near invisible. Tennessee needs wide receivers more than anybody, and they let him walk away. Yeah. So that should tell you pretty much everything you need to know. Let's move on. Let's see. I might as well just ram right through these. I'll just kind of blow right through the north here just because we're here.
While you do that, do it. I'll be back in 30 seconds. I got to let my dog out.
Fine. Gosh, monologue here. No pressure. AFC North. Tell you what, let's hit Baltimore. Lamar still in negotiations, trying to get his thing done with the contract. Running backs, JK, we don't know if he's really going to be ready week 1 or not. So it's been a mixed bag of who's touching the ball there. Defensively, right now, everything they're seeing on defense just looks like roses. These guys look like they are going to be lean, mean, and fast. Could be one of the best defensive units in football this year. Bengals, the Bengals, you don't want to say Bengals going to Bengal, but that usually had such a negative connotation. But these guys, they're going to air it out this year. It looks like, all the guys are back and ready to go. Burrow had appendicitis, had to get his appendix removed. He's going to miss a few weeks of practice. No big deal. He'll be back playing in no time. Won't miss any considerable amount of time. Defensively, Jesse Bates still sitting. So if you have him in IDP, go ahead and get a backup plan started there. Cleveland Browns. The Browns, we don't know what's going on with the Watson situation. That's a nightmare and a half. If he doesn't play, I don't want to be attached to anything in Cleveland with Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback. That'll make them very one-dimensional, and it'll be very difficult for that team to move the football or score any points. Pittsburgh Steelers. there was a wild report. Somebody said Mason Rudolph, has a shot at winning this quarterback job. Slow it down. We start getting these kinds of things. They're set out of context. Everyone needs to chill. This is going to be Mitch Trubisky's job. They want Mitch Trubisky in there. Mike Tomlin went up and interviewed him in Buffalo, and they had that conversation before they even bothered trying to sign him. So they loved this guy before they brought him in. And one of the things I really liked is Trubisky actually sat down with Pat Kerwin, and this was when he was in Buffalo early last offseason. And he could have gone and competed to start anywhere. And he said, no, I'm going to go to Buffalo. I want to see what they're doing on offense. I want to learn from Brian Dable. I want to learn from Josh Allen, see how these guys are preparing and how they're doing it differently. And that guy won a playoff game. He's gotten there. The Bears were terrible. Trubisky wasn't great. But this is a guy that's committed to honing his craft. I really like what I've seen and heard there. He's looked pretty decent. Chase Claypool, banged up. He's not really worth anything to us right now. Got
adult-sized hands. I don't know what else you need.
Yeah, look, hey, that's better than the alternative, I guess. Najee, looks like Najee put on some weight, but he is rocked up. Everything really looks good in Pittsburgh right now. They look like they're going to be a better
I'm assuming I wasn't here. You touched on Pickens?
I haven't gotten to Pickens yet. I just started Pittsburgh, I think, when you came back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, George Pickens looks like that guy, and they don't want to pay Deontay Johnson. Wouldn't be even a little surprised if we see Deontay get moved. Now, if Pittsburgh's sitting at the trade deadline and they're not competitive, it could happen this year.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. So they may not go through the franchise tag BS and all that. They may just say, all right, cool. Well, hey, if somebody wants to give us, a huge bag of picks for this guy and we're not competitive right now anyway, the heck with it. See ya. I don't think that'll be the case.
Chris Godwin does not pan out this year. His knee's a little funky. Julio does what Julio's done for 2 years, and Tampa Bay comes knocking.
Nah, because they don't have the assets to make it go. It would have to be somebody willing to sell out to get a wide receiver. It would have to be a situation where Green Bay is still waiting around on Odell Beckham if he even signs there, and they have nobody and they're trying to run down the NFC. It would take a unique situation, but I think Pittsburgh's going to be competitive. This is not going to be a bad football team. The only thing that's going to hold them back is just how good the rest of the AFC is. And so that's kind of rough, but that's Pittsburgh in a nutshell. I don't know if I missed any notes because I'm not looking at the chat screen. I'm going through kind of my
nothing. He said that Treader has not signed yet. So it sounded like, I guess what I'd seen was he was going to, he hasn't yet. So he's still available. He's going to go to Tampa. You can lock that in. Tom Brady will show up and tell him he's going to suck his blood out and if he doesn't, or whatever he does to convince these people to come play with him.
Okay. Let's hit the NFC North.
Great joke, Ronnie. Cool.
That's scared the daylights out of me. Good thing we don't have kids listening to the show. All right, NFC North. We'll start with the Bears. Look, man, it's Fields, it's Mooney, it's Kmet, Montgomery. There's nothing else to worry about on offense because there's nothing else that's worth anything. They're probably going to get blown off the field in week 1. The implied totals don't look good. Go check the Vegas lines if you don't believe me. Detroit Lions. Hey, Dan Campbell's doing up downs, man. He's ready to bite some kneecaps. He's ready to rock and roll. The video of him doing up downs was the most exciting thing I've seen. Jared Goff has been mostly sharp. Amon-Ra is just like he was last year. This guy's still going to be a target hog. Anybody downplaying his performance from last year and think, oh, well, everyone was hurt, he's not going to see. Doesn't friggin' matter. Goff found a security blanket, and as long as 16 is under center, Amon-Ra is going to be a factor.
Have we heard anything about J-Mo?
We're not going to see him until after Halloween, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to be really cautious with him considering the draft capital spent and all that kind of stuff. So, we'll see. Hopefully they can get him in sooner. I think they're going to hold him out and see how it goes. There's a reason why they have DJ Chark there. They did re-sign Josh Reynolds. You got Amon-Ra. Hawk's healthy. You got Swift. The offense really is actually pretty well loaded. The defense is pretty terrible, though. You got Aiden Hutchinson, and he's going to be a monster, but that's really about it.
Dude, so I agree with Gator, and I agree with you, and it has been a common talking point among NFL talking heads for the entire offseason. You look at the team that was the closest to being positive last year in win total. It was the Detroit Lions, and it wasn't even close. Yep. That team was a hair's breadth away from having 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah. And everybody was ready to hang Jared Goff out to dry, and I'm like, everybody needs to calm down. Yeah. The guy did what he could with a bad situation.
Agreed, Gator.
Green Bay. look, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know who he's throwing to. I mean, I got a phone call from Brian Gutekunst to go run some routes. So that's when you know it's bad because, I got bad knees and I'm slow.
I drove by a farm today, and you know what was in the field?
Jordy Nelson?
No. Lots of corns of cob. Cobs of corn. Corn's on the cob. And I'm not saying
this
it's a sign.
Long way around to that joke. That was a long ride to a bad joke. Sign,
but Randall Cobb might be the wide receiver 5 you're looking for.
Ugh. It's probably going to be the Lazard King. The more I'm hearing all of this, it sounds like Aaron's really hyped up about Lazard, but Romeo Doubs has been the surprise of camp. He's been blowing everybody away. He's making it look like he should have been the guy going where Christian Watson went. And, making a lot of noise right now in practice. So that's a name to keep an eye on is Romeo Doubs. He's super cheap right now. He's probably free in most leagues.
Yeah.
Defensively, not a whole heck of a lot going on here. I mean, it's the usual suspects. You go ahead and get Devondre Campbell. You get Quay Walker. If you need a D tackle, if you can roster him that way, Kenny Clark, keep it moving. Minnesota Vikings. Hey, man, Justin Jefferson, he's really good. Well, good news. In practice, he's still really good. All that stuff about Dalvin Cook, lining up in the slot, and he's not really running that many routes. Okay, they're trying to find ways to get him and Madison on the field together, but I don't expect that to be a thing unless Adam Thielen gets hurt and they have to get creative at receiver. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind there. Also had some chatter about Madison getting traded now that some of these other backs like Chris Carson retired and all this. They're not trading Alexander Madison. They've had to lean on him 3 years in a row. They may let him walk in free agency, but they're not going to up and trade him unless somebody blows them away with an offer. So we can put that away. Kirk Cousins looks like Kirk Cousins. Boone. It's not Mike Boone. It'd be Ty Chandler, probably the next guy.
I'm just living in that world.
Yeah, I think Mike Boone's in Denver, actually. So there's that too. Defensively, Danielle Hunter is a stand-up edge rusher. A lot of guys like him this year. Moved to linebacker in MFL. And if you're in an MFL league, I'd avoid him. But if you're playing on sleeper and you have that DL designation, he could be a guy that gets you 14 sacks if he's healthy all year and, be super useful. And a lot of people just kind of blowing him off because he's been hurt the last 2 years. Something to think about. But that is all 32 teams. It only took us like a week.
Only took us a week. I don't think all of those training camp stories are going to win you a fantasy championship, but they are going to help make your teams better if you're paying attention to this. And I will say, there's a few of those in there that will be winning people championships this year if they're playing their cards right. The Ramondres of the world, the Skyy Moores of the world, the Wan'Dale Robinsons. If that kid shows up and puts together over the last 8 games something like 500 yards of total offense, he's a league-winning wide receiver 3.
It takes Romeo Doubs hitting hard in weeks 12 through 17 to suddenly have you winning your championship and you got him off waivers.
Yeah.
When people say league winner, that's what you mean.
Yeah. We are, as you I've been the bane of Jeff's existence in so many ways for a lot of this offseason because I like to
every offseason.
I like to meme rookie mini camp reporting. I love to take that stuff and throw it in Jeff's face. But to Jeff's credit, and I agree with him, in reality, 2 days ago is when the news started to matter. And
even now, it only matters a little bit. And as we move, it becomes increasingly more relevant. And so what we need to start doing is reading the tea leaves, taking all these data points, and starting to kind of finish that puzzle on these individual players so that we can build the best rosters possible. And that's where you just kind of keep these guys on your radar. I'm not telling you to run out and get every guy we talk about, but keep them on your radar because if you start hearing more and more of a groundswell and more comments about them from reporters and other players and things like that, you know what? Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And then those guys end up being those guys that are on the Millie Maker roster and on DraftKings, or they're on your roster in week 17 when you're playing for a championship. So
it's the Odell Beckhams of the world. Rookie Odell Beckham. It's always the easiest example. But
I was so mad at myself for missing on that.
Yeah.
I whiffed bad on that one.
I did too. I didn't have him his rookie year. I watched that ship fly right by me, and it's always been a lesson that I've tried to learn moving forward.
Yep.
The only thing I'd say, if you take anything away from this show, if you're in round 8 or 9 of your redraft leagues and you're trying to decide on a wide receiver, just take Skyy Moore. Just do it. That's the point.
Count the money later.
Yes. Do we have anything else? We ready to close?
Dude, we've been at this for an hour 19. I'm ready for a nap.
All right. Well, bye. Well, I didn't do it right. We're back.
This is why you're not allowed. We shouldn't let you close the show anymore because you're terrible at it.
Bye.
They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from. And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.